I came home from work on a Tuesday afternoon and couldn't pull into my own driveway, not because it was blocked, not because of construction, but because someone had painted over it. Yes, painted over my driveway. Bright white diagonal lines stretched from curb to garage like I was suddenly running a no-parking loading zone. A brand new metal sign stood at the edge of the curb. HOA reserved parking. Permit required. I blinked twice, checked my address, checked my mailbox, checked the house number on the garage. Still mine. Still 742 Willow Bend. Still the house I bought 8 years ago. And yet somehow, according to the sign, my driveway now belonged to the HOA. 3 months earlier, Silverbrook HOA had started complaining about street congestion. Translation: residents had too many cars, teenagers got licenses, parents bought second SUVs, some people converted garages into gyms, so the board had a brilliant idea: reclaim unused spaces. Now here's the key detail. My driveway sits slightly wider than most. The original developer designed it that way because my lot curves near the cul-de-sac. That extra 3 feet? Apparently irresistible to power-hungry HOA logic. I parked on the street and called the HOA office. "Hi, this is Daniel Carter at 742 Willow Bend. Someone painted my driveway." The receptionist hesitated. That wasn't vandalism. It was approved. Approved? Approved? Approved by who? The board voted to designate overflow parking spaces. I stared at my garage door. On private driveways? There was silence. Then, "It was determined your driveway extended into a shared easement." Shared easement. There it was. The magic phrase people use when they don't fully understand property lines. Here's the thing about me. I read everything before signing it. When I bought the house, I requested full plat maps and easement diagrams from the county. Not because I'm paranoid, because I'm practical. And I remembered clearly. The easement ended at the sidewalk, not at my garage, which meant the HOA had just painted and claimed property that legally belonged to me. Without permission, without notice, without consent. Linda Shaw, HOA president, perfect landscaping, permanent tight smile, voice that sounds polite until you realize it isn't. She showed up the next morning while I was pressure washing the paint. "You can't remove that," she said. "I just did." She crossed her arms. "That space is designated overflow parking now." "For who?" "For residents." "I am a resident. It's for community benefit. It's my driveway." That's when she delivered the line that started everything. You don't own all of it. There are moments in life when you can either argue or you can plan. I chose plan. Because if someone thinks they can take 3 feet today, they'll take 5 tomorrow. That afternoon, I visited the county land records office, printed updated plat maps, pulled official surveys, highlighted the boundary lines in neon yellow, took photos, scanned everything. The lines were crystal clear: property boundary, curb to garage, 0 shared driveway easement, meaning the HOA had just committed something very interesting: encroachment. Instead of arguing, I adjusted. If my driveway was overflow parking, then I would follow their logic perfectly. That weekend, I placed orange traffic cones at the exact legal boundary of my property, measured with a tape measure, marked with chalk. Then I installed temporary removable bollards, perfectly legal, non-permanent, right at my property line. Result? The extra parking space shrank by half. Suddenly, cars trying to use it couldn't open their doors. Technically parked, functionally useless. I wasn't blocking anything, just respecting my boundary. Precisely. She showed up again. "You're obstructing community access." "No, I'm protecting private property." "You're being difficult." "I'm being accurate." She threatened fines. I asked her to show me the clause that allows HOA repainting of private driveways. She couldn't, because it didn't exist. 3 days later, I received an official violation letter. Unauthorized modifications affecting HOA-designated parking space. I laughed out loud. They were fining me for defending property they didn't own. And that's when I realized They hadn't checked the survey. They assumed. An assumption is expensive. The first car got towed on a Thursday. Not mine. Theirs. I woke up to loud knocking. Not polite knocking. Panic knocking. When I opened the door, a woman I'd never seen before was standing there in slippers. "Did you call a tow truck on my car?" Her sedan had been parked halfway inside the newly painted overflow space. Halfway on my driveway. I kept my voice calm. "Did you park past the curb line?" "Yes, because that's overflow parking. On my property." She blinked. "What?" The night before, I had called a local towing company. Not randomly, not aggressively, legally. I showed them my survey. I showed them the painted lines. I showed them that a vehicle was parked within my property boundary without permission. They verified, they measured, they towed, clean, professional, lawful. And now someone's Camry was sitting in an impound lot charging storage fees. It didn't take long for Linda to appear. This time, she wasn't smiling. "You had no authority to tow a resident." "I had authority over my driveway. That's HOA designated space. Show me the recorded amendment." She hesitated, because there wasn't one. HOA boards can vote on policies, but they cannot rewrite recorded property boundaries without filing legal amendments with the county. And guess what? They hadn't. By noon, Linda had escalated. She hired her own surveyor. I respected that. Good. Let's verify. The surveyor arrived with equipment, tripod, laser level, boundary markers. 2 hours later, he walked over to us holding his clipboard. "Well," he said carefully, "Mr. Carter's property line extends fully across the painted area." Linda's jaw tightened. "There must be an easement." He shook his head. "Only utility easement at the sidewalk. Not driveway use." Silence. Pure, heavy silence. Here's where it got interesting. The surveyor didn't just confirm the boundary, he noticed something else. The HOA paint markings extended onto 3 other driveways on the same curve. Not just mine. 3. Meaning this wasn't a small mistake, it was a pattern. And patterns cost money. Instead of backing down, the HOA doubled down. I received another letter, this time threatening daily fines, suspension of community privileges, legal action for disrupting HOA operations, disrupting by enforcing my deed. That's when I stopped playing defense. Up until now, I had reacted. Cones, bollards, towing. Now I decided to go proactive. Step 1. Send a certified letter. Not emotional, not dramatic, just documented. The letter included copy of official survey, highlighted plat map, photos of paint encroachment, notice demanding immediate removal of HOA markings, reimbursement for repainting costs, notice of potential claim for trespass and property damage signed, certified, delivered. 3 days later, residents received an email. Emergency board session, attendance requested. Translation, damage control. The clubhouse was full. Not because people cared about parking, because people care about liability. Linda stood at the front, calm voice, tense posture. "There appears to be confusion regarding certain driveway boundaries." Confusion. Interesting choice of word. When they opened the floor for comments, I stood. No anger, no sarcasm, just documents. I projected the survey onto the clubhouse screen, highlighted lines, zoomed into the recorded plat map. Then I said something simple. The HOA painted private property without legal authority. One vehicle has already been towed from land it had no right to occupy. This exposes the association to liability. Murmurs filled the room. Because once residents hear liability and lawsuit in the same sentence, they start calculating. A retired attorney in the back raised his hand. Was a recorded amendment filed before these designations were painted? Linda didn't answer immediately, because the answer was no, and everyone knew it. One board member leaned toward Linda and whispered something. Another avoided eye contact entirely. Power shifts are subtle, but you can feel them. And in that room, the shift had begun. Here's the part that hurt them most. The HOA had spent community funds to hire painters, print signage, install metal poles, create enforcement notices, all based on a property interpretation that wasn't verified. That's mismanagement, and homeowners don't tolerate that. Because during the meeting, another car had parked halfway across my driveway, assuming the sign still meant something. It didn't. By the time the meeting ended, that car was gone, impounded. Again. The room went silent when someone checked outside and realized this wasn't about parking anymore. It was about ownership, and ownership wins. Every time. A resident motioned for immediate suspension of the driveway designation policy pending legal review. Seconded instantly. Board vote required. 3 voted yes. Linda voted no. Motion passed. The paint would be removed immediately. Because removing paint fixes the surface, it doesn't fix precedent. I requested formal written apology, public clarification to residents, reimbursement for driveway cleaning, coverage of towing dispute complaints, not revenge, correction. Instead of accepting responsibility, she said, "We acted in good faith." That phrase is dangerous, because good faith without due diligence is negligence, and negligence has consequences. This wasn't about paint anymore. It wasn't about a towed Camry. It wasn't even about 3 stolen feet of driveway. It was about credibility. And credibility, once cracked, doesn't glue back together easily. 2 weeks after the emergency meeting, the HOA's attorney sent a formal advisory letter to the board. Not to me, to them. The tone was polite. The message was brutal. The association had exposed itself to potential claims for trespass, property damage, improper enforcement, liability for wrongful towing, and if even one homeowner filed suit, the HOA's insurance deductible alone would hit 5 figures. Suddenly, the extra parking solution looked very expensive. I wasn't in the room, but word travels fast in neighborhoods, especially when money's involved. Apparently, the discussion got heated. One board member asked the question that finally mattered. Why didn't we verify the surveys before painting? Linda's answer? We assumed the easement covered it. Assumed. There it was again, the most expensive word in property law. 3 days later, an official HOA email went out to every resident. After further legal clarification, the previously designated overflow parking areas have been removed. The board regrets any confusion. Regrets any confusion. No apology, no accountability, just confusion. But that wasn't enough for the residents anymore, because by now, people had done their own homework. 3 other homeowners had checked their surveys. And guess what? Same issue. Their driveways had been partially painted too. One Saturday morning, I had visitors. Not angry ones, curious ones. Neighbors from 2 houses down. They held copies of their plat maps. Can you show us where you found your boundary? We spent an hour measuring from curb to garage, chalk lines, tape measures, confirming. Turns out, the HOA had encroached on 4 properties total, 4 potential claims, 4 legal exposures. Now it wasn't Daniel versus the HOA, it was homeowners versus mismanagement. The HOA had already paid for paint removal, sign removal, surveyor fees, legal consultation, administrative corrections, all from community funds. Meaning, residents paid for the mistake. That's when the mood shifted from irritation to accountability. A petition circulated requesting a vote of confidence in the board, specifically in Linda. The clubhouse filled again. But this time, it wasn't tense. It was focused. Linda stood at the front like always. But something had changed. Her confidence wasn't sharp anymore. It was brittle. When given the floor, I didn't criticize her. I didn't list mistakes. I said something simple. This situation could have been avoided with verification before enforcement. Property lines aren't suggestions. They're recorded. That was it. No drama. Because facts don't need volume. Ballots were cast anonymously, collected, counted, Recounted. Final result, 68% voted to remove Linda as HOA president. Not because of paint, because of pattern, assumption, escalation, and refusal to correct quickly. Linda stepped down within 48 hours. Her replacement? One of the quieter board members. An accountant, methodical, measured. First action taken? Independent audit of all recent HOA enforcement policies. Second action? Formal written apology to affected homeowners. Third? A new rule. No property designation changes without recorded legal verification and homeowner consent. Finally, common sense. A month later, the board invited residents to submit practical solutions for overflow parking. Not forced, not imposed, suggested. They ended up repainting curbside street zones, legally, within public easement boundaries. No private driveways touched, no lawsuits threatened, no cars towed from someone else's property. Funny how cooperation works when ego steps aside. People think HOA disputes are about control. They're not. They're about lines. Invisible ones. On paper. In contracts. On maps. The moment someone crosses a line without verifying it, conflict begins. The moment you enforce boundaries calmly, respect follows. It's clean, unpainted, unmarked, exactly as the county recorded it. Sometimes neighbors joke when they park on the street. Don't worry, we measured first. We laugh, because the tension's gone, and the lesson's stuck. The HOA didn't steal my driveway because they were evil. They did it because they were careless. Careless with assumptions. Careless with authority. Careless with other people's property. And carelessness meets correction. Every time. Before you enforce, verify. Before you paint, measure. Before you threaten fines, read the deed. Because sometimes the quiet neighbor with the tape measure is about to teach the entire board a parking lesson they'll never forget.